Right, so we're still talking about strategic leadership. We're still talking about the role of leadership in giving life to an organization's strategic plan. We're still talking about the fact that as much as the leader is there to create a vision, there's some components that need to be put in place in order for the vision to be given life. And all of that ultimately becomes the accountability of your strategic leader. So when we think of the kinds of things that a strategic leader does, and it's always going to be the first one, and we've spoken about this so many times, it's about creating that clear vision, that ideal future, that kind of inspirational thing, the thing that inspires people to aspire to be great. And the focus in terms of that vision is about giving a direction towards which we gear all the activities in an organization. My apologies for using this example, but again, it's because I haven't been able to find an example that's been better than this at explaining a vision. And it is Nokia's vision in the sort of mid-2000s, where Nokia's vision was, and I'm going to make that one my vision there, was that life goes mobile. And when you think of a company that at that stage had made voice go mobile, that all of a sudden we're going to make life go mobile, that's an impressive vision. And when you think of how powerful the idea of life goes mobile is, it tells every single person in the organization the role they have to give some sort of life to that vision. So if you're a marketer, you have to market the fact that this device will make your life go mobile. If you're a software programmer engineer, yeah, Con, that to me is yeah, I'll come to that in a second. If you're a programmer or software engineer, every time you write a brand new every time you write a new line of code, it's about making life go mobile. So when we think of what a vision does, it gives us a direction. It allows us to see where our focus is, and it then gets the organization moving in that direction. And the only way we get people moving in that direction is about that energy we create amongst our employees, amongst the talent. That vision generally should indicate an organization's core ideology. If you're a smart device manufacturer, life goes mobile means that our focus is about that specific core ideology, and it's this future. Now we know that we've got to a point where life has gone mobile. Okay, Con, in terms of your question, yeah, it's a strange one. Why would you think that fits into that vision? And it might 100% fit into that vision. You know, I worry about the kind of things that Apple has done to keep prices down. The current Apples don't even come with charging cables. You have to buy your charging cables separately. Now, I find that incredibly arrogant. I find it as a way of ripping people off. And removing an audio jack, again, forces you to replace your technology with new technology that can interface with something that doesn't plug into your phone. So I'm not sure, but maybe that is it, that it is a pure wireless device, and perhaps that is the case, and it's an indication maybe where we are going in the future. But Apple have offended a lot of people. The idea that they don't even sell charging cables as a standard with the phone, to me, is a real issue. But when you think of your example there of a pure wireless, no contact with anything device, maybe it is part of that. Yeah, I also think Apple is about making money, and they're finding new ways of making money all the time. I'm not an Apple user, and I never will be an Apple user, but that potentially is the reality. Never will be an Apple user. I absolutely guarantee that. So the second thing that we need to look at when we think of what the ideal vision is, it has to be possible. You don't want to create a vision that is so impossible and it's so far far-fetched that people in the organization cannot identify with it. So it has to force people to be innovative. So that vision must force people to use that right side of their brain, must force people to think about the world creatively, but it also must be energetic. So the idea of life goes mobile ticks those boxes for me perfectly. And then desirable. And when you're a cell phone manufacturer at that time, it was prior to smartphones or smart devices, it is a desirable future. That this thing that people ultimately will carry around in their pocket will be their life. And we know how it's our wallet, how it's our camera, how it is our alarm in the morning, how it is the way we find information on the internet. It's our entertainment center. I mean, it is everything in our life. It must be actionable, and part of actionability is that every person in the organization is able to find a niche for themselves in terms of how they're going to contribute to that particular vision. And it must be clear. I honestly believe life goes mobile is a very powerful, very clear, very, very inspirational vision. I don't know what the future of smart devices is, and the reason for that is because my imagination doesn't stretch that far. But I really believe that the future of mobile devices will be without devices, and that's going to sound a bit weird, but people are talking about hand implants and implants under the skin as your future devices, so we won't need a handset. Having said that, when you start doing implants into skins, you start losing a lot of money. So the tech, yeah, the Neuralink, boy, very, very much the Neuralink as well. I don't know what the future of mobile technology will be. I certainly will not allow something to be implanted into my skin. So I will always have a device, I suppose, until they get to a point where they don't where we don't manufacture devices anymore, like taking the bloody jack out of a phone so that you don't have speakers, so you can't use your earphones. The second thing we need to know is that when we are strategic leaders, we need to be able to see the organization in its entirety. I think everyone knows this by now, but I am a huge Formula One racing fan. And what makes Mercedes-Benz impressive, although I'm not a Mercedes-Benz supporter, is their ability to see the organization as a whole and how every single activity within that organization needs to contribute and how they create synergy between those activities. Now, my thinking in terms of that is Mercedes-Benz does it incredibly well and have been doing it very well, from Lewis Hamilton to the guys back building their engines. On top of that, we now know that we've seen some advances on the side of Red Bull, and we'll see further advances from Red Bull as well. Yeah, absolutely, Boya. That kid is something very, very special. There is a talent there that very, very few people in the world have. So when we think of the organizational system, the kinds of things that we have to do is, first of all, create our organizational structure. So when we think of creating our organizational structure, it is what we put together in essentially linking the different elements in the organization. So how do we make sure that finance works with marketing, marketing works with operations, operations works with supply chain, and so forth. So we've got to find a way of integrating those different elements in a way that we end up with organizational synergy. The second thing that we've got to look at there is that this organization must get the best brains in the world and use those brains as capital. So when we talk about social capital is the collective intelligence, the collective competencies, the collective abilities of people in an organization, and how those all tie in together to contribute to making the vision a reality. And then also making sure that we have leadership within the organization. For me, leadership, in terms of the modern view of leadership, is the idea of distributed leadership. Now, I don't know who all is on the call, but you'll see when you think back to your schools, and obviously, Con, you will know that for me, I understand college because that's where my boys and you and Matt went. But college is very good at distributed leadership. And distributed leadership means that we have leadership at different levels in the organization, where we cover all our bases in terms of our leadership. Now, college, if you think of the HODs, the people that are in charge of the various academics, the school boys that are leaders in positions as well, to me, we see significant distributive leadership in a place like Maritzburg College. And then also to look at the right culture and climate. The difference between culture and climate. Culture is the way we do things around here. Now, fortunately for Connor, we're having this as an online session, but and Kieran as well, and I know Kieran's not on the call. But the one thing that the poor Maritzburg College boys have a huge challenge with when I teach organizational culture and tradition is that if I play 99 Red Balloons, Con, what do you do when 99 Red Balloons plays? You know how evil it is. I did it once, and I'm not going to say the boys that were in the class. The college boys could not keep their pants on. It's the funniest thing in the world. And this is varsity college where we have cameras. And it is so evil. And you know that it's my sense of humor, and I actually didn't really care. So I did go to Bennett's afterwards and said to him that, dude, I might have caused a little bit of trouble. I played 99 Red Balloons. But culture is seen in the way that we have traditions. For the people that don't know what happens when 99 Red Balloons play, the college boys drop their trousers, which is appropriate at a function when you're dancing, but certainly isn't appropriate in a class when the idiot lecturer plays it to be spiteful. Maybe we are lucky today, Con, that this isn't a face-to-face class. Oh, my word. I regret now making this online, actually. Zipalele said she can't wait to see the boys drop their trousers. So maybe it's good that we didn't do that today. Jessica is beside herself. I can see the emotion and the sadness in Jessica's message there. Guys, but what culture is, it's the way we do things around here. It's the traditions that the organization has. It's the way that they celebrate successes. It's the way that they mourn losses. The difference between culture and climate is culture is the way we do things around here. Climate is the individual employee's experience of that specific culture. Yeah, son, I know. The boys can't help themselves. I'm so sorry, the boys can't help themselves. So, and some evil person will always do it. So climate is the way that we actually experience an organization's culture. I always find it amazing when my evaluations come back. My evaluations generally are 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, and then there'll always be that individual that will go 5, and then there'll be those individuals that will give me 0. And it's interesting that everyone has the same experience in my class, but I don't resonate with people the same way. So I generally am pretty popular amongst the students, but I can promise you, and some of you might be on this call, some students despise me. They hate my classes. They give me 0 out of 10. And I promise you, those people, one day I'm going to find their names and I'm going to see them in the car park and I'm going to be driving my car. And guess who is going to get smacked by a VW sign in the middle of the forehead? I'm being recorded here. I should be careful. But it is, and that's the reality of the world. People will work for an organization. Some people will think it's the best place in the world. Other people will think it's different. And it's with my classes. Some people will like my style. Most people like my style, and I really get really high ratings. But I promise you, there are some of your friends that absolutely hate my classes. I also just think, imagine giving me 0 out of 10. I promise you, I think it's a psychological defect that causes that. I'm being recorded, so so when I'm fired, you guys will know why. And then, guys, obviously, in terms of how we make the organization unique, as we create our core competencies, we create our abilities, and we make sure that those competencies and abilities and the kinds of systems and procedures we have feed into the organization's strategy. Guys, in terms of designing the organizational structural subsystem, yeah, it really shows how we get the different departments to link together. So when we think of Varsity College Pietermaritzburg, at the top will be the principal, will be Eve, and then we'll have the finance department, we'll have the marketing department, we'll have IT, we'll have student services, we'll have the academic department. And key is how we add plus signs between those different departments. The kinds of things that we need to worry about in this structural subsystem is, first of all, how do we allocate jobs to the different departments? Varsity College, in terms of admin, for example, have a very clear divide in terms of specialist areas. So there's sort of people that look after customer service, the people that look after timetabling, the people that look after results and result capture. All of those are specific examples of departments that are necessary to get an educational institution to run. Then we have to look at policies and procedures. And the reason we have policies and procedures is because we want to facilitate decision taking. So those policies and procedures essentially are there to deal with recurring problems. So when we have recurring problems, the focus is very much, we don't want to go through an entire decision-making process every time. We want to make sure that we have some sort of policy issue to deal with it. I've got to answer an urgent message just now. I'm just waiting for the second message to come through. So in terms of that, we can look at allocating jobs, and then obviously also we need to look at, when we got this organizational structure, how do we divide the labor up in terms of Varsity College, marketing versus finance versus, and then the span of control. I like organizations where we have few managers and many people reporting to few managers, because the reality is when you've got many managers and few people reporting to many managers, those managers become over controlling, they micromanage, and they are the kinds of individuals that essentially become policemen to make sure that they beat others into submission. Not a big fan of that. And then to look at the social capital, we need to make sure that we have the right people in the right place at the right time. And when I use the term right people, I talk about skills, competencies, abilities. The term that is important to describe modern employees is that one there, the right talent. What makes talent special? What makes talent different from employee status? What makes talent different from ordinary employees? Okay, so they have something they can offer to the business. Yeah, absolutely. For me, talent is scarce. So when we talk about talent versus an ordinary employee, talent is scarce.